go. Stop.
We good?
We are started.
Yes, okay. Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I'm going to have Ken and Tony lead our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. Welcome, everybody. My agenda. All right. So welcome to the warmth. I noticed it was starting to rain and it's 28 degrees. So school tomorrow, Mr. Minka?
Black ice.
Yeah.
I'm already getting calls.
Yes, I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Minka to talk about awards, recognitions, and celebrations.
We had Deke Elementary School just in their PTO just purchased a new piece of playground equipment for fundraising, and that was installed this week, so I haven't been out to see it yet, but I'm looking forward to that. Gaines Elementary was also awarded some certificates of recognition and some banners for their My Heart Safe Schools. They students have participated in a competition there, which has been all about heart health, and that's been a very fantastic initiative. And two people who have been with our district for a long time, Diane Wendt and Brenda Tisham are retiring. Diane just retired a week ago. Brenda has been with the district a long time as well, secretary at the high school, and she's going to be done at the end of this month. And so just to recognize their efforts, I think it's appropriate to say a lot of service to the district, and we certainly appreciate everything that they've done. And so I just wanted to recognize them for their longevity of service, and so that's those will be difficult positions to fill. We also have some, we'll have some time over this meeting and next meeting to probably, have some time to acknowledge and just recognize. But Mr. Engel has been on this board for a long time. I believe it's 8 years now, right? So close to it. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I have appreciated getting to know Ken, and I think while we do have one more board meeting, we'll talk about that. Some things we'd like to do for him at our next board meeting. I just would like to acknowledge and recognize his long tenure of service on the board. It's not easy being a board member and coming to all of these meetings and putting up with superintendents like myself, and it's just been good to get to know you, and I've appreciated that. And I'll say more at a different time, but just want to recognize your service and also Tony Jones. Just how much we've appreciated getting to know you, and I think you provide a diverse perspective that's very, been very just refreshing for me to get to know you, and I hope that our conversations will continue long after this. So just to recognize the two of you in that, and as well as our other employees. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And I want to echo what Ben just said, and we will talk a little bit more about how we're going to recognize you and celebrate you at our next meeting. So, thank you, Ben. We have before us a consent agenda, the minutes, the agenda, and resignations and retirements. If there are no changes, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved. Support.
Mike, Brian, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Back to you, Mr. Minecraft.
All right, so I will just make one quick note. I don't think it matters for the purpose of the agenda, but under informational items, it would be the C there should be pulled back. It should actually be 8. I don't think it matters in terms of the content that we'll be discussing, but the discussion items should be falling under that category, just as a just so everybody understands the piece there. So we have had quite a busy month. The bond passage has led to a lot of different meetings. We've had a steering committee meeting with a large number of people. Brian and Mike Ahern were a part of that first meeting. Tony Paul will be at our next one. We're looking to have a steering committee next week. just to kind of manage everybody's expectations, money will probably likely be delivered by the bond underwriter in the end of February. So that's when we can expect to start, the process. So end of February, early March is when we look to close on the bond sale. And so we have met with the architects, met with them today, met with the construction managers to kind of talk about timeline. And the steering committee will be meeting with them next week and beyond. So a realistic, setting realistic expectations, but we're going to start communicating out to the community as well as our families, just kind of a timeline of projects as early as next week. We will also be putting some ads in the View and in the papers to formalize a citizens oversight committee, which we've talked about. That will be very important, particularly in the springtime, once construction projects actually begin. So lots of information to come, but right now we're in the planning and design phase. Deke Elementary is having a holiday program. It's going to be scheduled on December 19th at 6 o'clock. There are a variety of different celebrations and holiday parties and things like that going on at the different buildings. I had an opportunity to meet with both Alicia Gardner and Chuck Melke this past week, and I'm excited to work with both of them and invite them onto the board. So we'll have an opportunity to work with them starting at our first meeting officially in January, but have started to engage those conversations. Also, just to be aware, we have a very large agenda tonight, so I'm not going to take a lot of other time. Just to give you a heads up, I'll be sending out some by our next meeting, and I'll talk about this in H of the discussion items for when it gets to my evaluation. But one of the things that I'll be talking about next week is a brief legislative update, because it's what they call lame duck session right now, which means anything and everything they think they can get through, they do. And sometimes the results of that are very, very impactful to us. And so I will want to make sure that you're informed. I try and follow that legislation very carefully. And so I'll make sure that I inform you of that. And many of the things that we have coming down the pike potentially as a result of that, I'll be talking about at our next meeting. So I'll defer the rest of my time to the rest of the agenda.
Okay. Subcommittee reports. Mike?
Finance Committee met Monday. Auditors will be giving their first report tonight. Chris still working on the budget amendment. She's reported that the bank reconciliation reports are up to date and in good shape. Check register for November has been reviewed. In the general fund, there were 208 checks in the amount of $3,233,407. $3,233,417.71. In the internal account fund, 52 checks in the amount of $43,081.72. CDC account had one check for $550. In the community ed account, there were 4 in the amount of $713.50. There's no pending quotes or bids out at this time. We discussed the board's authorization to bid on the amount of bond project change orders, and we'll be discussing that further in the January meeting. We discussed the Murray Crable option to purchase with Community First and their request to lower the limited use clause from 50 to 30, and the committee recommends approval of this change. We began discussion on the Cage Sports Club contract, which expires June 31st of next year. You have in your packets tonight my list of Cage talking points for your review, and we'll be discussing this at the December 19th board meeting. There were no public or committee comments, and the next meeting will be announced after the January organizational meeting. And we adjourn at 4:04. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. All right. Other committees.
Building and Site.
Building and Site.
We also met Monday at 4 o'clock. The big change that we talked about is there's gonna be one maintenance personnel working the third shift this year, started Monday, right?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Mhm.
Gonna work for the month of December to about spring break. Main duty's gonna be doing general work orders that you can handle by yourself and plowing snow. Because of taking on the elementary schools with early development, those schools need to be plowed early. So, and there's a lot of other districts that do that, so I think that's a good thing. And the new salt spreader, which was purchased, was already put on and used for the slush snow we had 2 weeks ago, so, and everyone was happy with that.
Good.
And and RC's looking into the proper way to close down Mary Crapo, to turn off the water, to what we have to do to keep just a very minimum on for the building. So we don't ruin it. But we do plan on plowing the snow, cutting the grass, not boarding up the windows, to maintain its appearance. And we adjourned at 5, and our next meeting is in January to be determined.
I think
Questions?
Yeah, I think the third shift thing's an excellent idea, and something that we talked about years ago, and I think it kinda fell on deaf ears. But, in the bus garage,
Mhm.
there are some duties there that can probably be carried out on, a second shift, where you're not waiting on a bus to come in or this or that. And it might be something to see if it would be worthwhile, of how many of those are single-person jobs. I mean, the only thing you really have to be fearful of is when you jack a bus up.
Sure.
So you wouldn't wanna do that while you're there alone, but
Mhm.
anything under the hood, oil changes, that sort of stuff, when you're not jacking the bus up, I think that's something that should be explored, because then those buses aren't out. One, you're not taking them out of service to work on them and using a spare, and then you're also not waiting on the bus to come in. So
Yeah, yeah.
as when I worked at Flint and I drove a bus, a lot of maintenance got done. Your short-term maintenance is all got done at night,
Mhm.
and your long-term maintenance is where the bus was already taken off the road, were done during the day by most of your day shift mechanics. So it's something I've already seen that it worked.
Okay.
So something, if you wanna look into that, same principle.
I'm glad you reminded me, I forgot to talk about it in celebrations, but, our bus, RC just informed me yesterday, our bus fleet, received 100% on their safety inspections from the Michigan State Police, so, usually it's, you get it 95% or something like that, so they didn't have any issues, so that was good, but that's a good idea on the third.
It's an idea,
Mhm.
something maybe to look at.
Mhm.
Thanks, Tony. All right. You have informational items on your agenda, and if you have any questions, you know where to direct them. Board discussion items, we have GISD Board of Education presentation by Mr. Ford, who's here with us. Welcome, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Superintendent, and members of the board. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come and visit with you. This is not the first show, I guess. Some of you have seen us before. We try to do this annually, to go around to each district, giving them an update, and perhaps get some ideas from you as to what you would like to see us do in the future. You have a packet that's rather substantial at your desk. I'm not gonna bore you. I understand your time limits tonight, so I'll just give you some comments on that, but this is for your late night reading enjoyment perhaps, so let's play it that way if you don't mind. I was interested, I got here a little early and I was looking up at your vision and your goals and that sort of thing. The ISD has goals as well. And we administer those, we conduct our business given the goals and keeping them in sharp focus. Each one of our buildings have goals for themselves as well, all of which, of course, is encompassed in our overall goals, so it doesn't violate anything. But it's all following the NCA kind of rules and regulations and guidance. By the way, I'm pleased to tell you that the ISD, once again, has been certified by the NCA. This is our second year. That's pretty substantial, and my understanding was our first year around, I think we were the first ISD in the state that received that certification. Here we've come back the second year. A couple of things I'd like to bring to your attention. The Genesee Career Institute. Those of you that have been around for a little while, you'll note that is the former skill center. And you remember that Flint ran that, and eventually they turned it over to us, and we had to get involved in it. We found a lot of problems that we had to take care of. We passed a bond program, $10 million, and it was all invested in the skill center, now Genesee Career Institute. Some of the things that are involved in our programming out there that I'm particularly interested in, because I'm ex-Army, our junior ROTC program. And our first year out, we thought we'd get 50, maybe 50 young men and women that would be interested in our ROTC program. We hired a colonel from the Jackson area, full bird colonel, by the way, to come over and be the director. And he brought a first sergeant with him, I think out of the Detroit area. And guess what? We didn't get our 50. We got 100. I'm pleased to tell you this year, right now, we stand at 153 students, and there's 2 or 3 or 4 more in the offing that are interested in coming into the program. Quick overview of the program. We of course do lots and lots of things with them. We give them an opportunity to be, and they form teams in some cases. They have an opportunity to be exposed to a rifle shooting range. They have obviously a fitness program. They go through the calisthenics just like we used to do in the Army. They have a weight room if they so choose to use it. Obviously classrooms, because there's classes associated with the ROTC program. They have a drill team. They also have horses, or we have horses. That's our next goal. I think we have to build a barn. Right now we farm that out, but we're gonna have to get a stable for our own horses, but it's really, really moving fast. They're all in uniform. The other night I presented at Fenton, and the superintendent shared with me that he says he was in one of their buildings in his high school the other day. Here was 5 young people in the area, all in their uniforms. They'd been at our place during the day, and they were in their uniform at the high school, which is kind of nice. And they have many other unique opportunities. They get to compete against state and national teams. Our rifle team last year, first year mind you, we had a first place winner, and we were in the top 5 all the way across as a team. The colonel and the sergeants, they do great work there. And if you've not been exposed to that, I would hope that you'll visit our center. We're looking to probably build a drill team building. That's in the offing right now. We're looking at it, trying to figure out just exactly what we might need for that. So that's forthcoming. We have also this spring built an agri-science greenhouse. And again, I would invite you to go over and see that. We've toured that, the board that is. It's operational now, and it's really, really neat. I'm a city kid, so I don't understand a lot of that sort of thing, but the instructor was there and gave us a good overview of what's going on, and so I'd invite you all, if you'd like, to come over and witness that. Phase 2 construction and renovation of the culinary art wing. Some of the school board association from time to time has a dinner meeting over there in the old banquet style. That's all going to be changed, and our kitchen today has been indeed completely redesigned. Before it was about this big, and now it's about this big, and they've got all the latest technology in there. So young people that come through that program stand ready to go into the culinary arts business after they leave high school. They can pass the test. They'll be prepared by virtues of the programming that they learn during this time at the culinary arts building. So obviously that's open for all students throughout the entire county at no cost, by the way, to you folks. Your student goes over for a little while and goes back to your school. My wife used to be a high school counselor, and she used to fret a little bit about trying to work the scheduling out, and I suspect you folks have had the same situation, but it works out, and it's really great. We now have what we call the CTE, or Career Technical Education Early Middle College. Now, as you know, we have middle college, but that's an off-campus thing, and those students that are enrolled there are at our college full-time. This is not the case in this one. This CTE early college allows your students here to remain in your district and come over and take classes that are taught by professors from Mott College, and it allows them to be prepared to take the certification tests for a number of non-college kinds of things, but the trades, for example. We're finding a greater and greater demand for trade people being trained so they can move in to replace those that are retiring, and I hear that all the time. We can't find people, and so we've instituted that. There's a folder inside your folder, there's documents explaining the whole program, and I would draw that to your attention. We also have an operational component in the packet, in the large packet we got, and it sort of gives you an overview of everything that we do. One of the things that I'm particularly pleased about is the relationship between the ISD and Swartz Creek District, and the fact that obviously it's a delivery of services for you that helps you, and this past year has saved you $2,015,716.49. Those dollars come back into your general funds, and you get to use them for other activities here at the school. We're pretty proud of that program. We do that for almost all of the school districts now, and it's a savings, and it's one of those deals like buying in volumes. The Genesee Opportunities program, we're in the process of trying to develop this where you can have a student bank account, and you start it early on. I have grandchildren that are great-grandchildren, I'm sorry. I wish they were still just my grandkids. Great-grandkids are just starting school, they're kindergartners, and they're gonna get into that Genesee program, saving a little bit of money here or there, and then when they get to the point where they graduate from high school, there will be an ample opportunity to take those dollars and use it for either trades or for college education. That's pretty exciting. What we're doing, to be honest with you, is we're consulting with the national folks. We're looking at their models before we try to develop our own model. So it's still in the very earliest stages, and you'll hear more about that later. Educare. I don't know whether you've had an opportunity to go over and visit the Educare school. It's located over in the area of the Durant-Turry Mott building and Kettering University. It's the largest Educare school in the country. Mott Foundation built the building. Community Foundation paid for all of the furniture and all the ancillary items that go into that building, and they've contracted with us to be the operational aspects of it. We have, let me see what the numbers are here. Sorry, I had that in my head, and 220 students are involved in that Educare unit right now. That's babies up through 5. So it's like a Head Start program. We have a Head Start program around the county, but this one is really terrific. And it's one of the leaders, and again, the largest in the country. We're very, very pleased about that. So that's a short version of what it is. We could talk probably a lot longer, but again, in respect to your time, I don't want to take that much time with you this evening. I do have one other point that I'd like to make, and that is that the Indian tribe, and I've got to pronounce this right now, Hokana, I think that's how I pronounce it, they've contracted with us to help them develop a curriculum that they can offer to schools around the state that it's fundamentally based on the American Indian culture, so that it can be offered as a teaching tool in the schools. You may or may not get excited about it, but you know, history is kind of wonderful, and we sort of like that. I did bring you the popcorn. You notice it's your colors, in spite of the fact that Brian tried to give me back his.
I had no idea
He was
that.
trying to be kind, I think. But it's just a little gift from us. I do also have a banner. I'm not going to open it up because it's 10 feet and I can't stretch that big. This is a banner for Swartz Creek. We would invite you to look at it and perhaps find a place to hang it and display it. It's made by our students. And it's pretty terrific. I think you'll like it once you see it full-time. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and take up some of your time and share a little bit of what we're all about. Obviously, we're a lot more involved. Those of you that attended our budget hearings, you know that we're approaching $200 million a year budget. It's a big operation. I remember when I first got on the board, we were about this big. And all we delivered back in those days was special education for those that were challenged, both physically and mentally. And then Irv Davis retired, and David Spadhelp came along, and it grew maybe to this big. David was a pretty good visionary superintendent, and he opened up the doors for a lot of things. Then he retired, and then along came Tom Sviktovich. Dr. Sviktovich was even broader minded, and he got us about this size. I'm pleased to tell you now Lisa is really this big. However, I would just tell you this, the board members are of one mind. We know if we coast, we go downhill, so we're not looking to coast. And if you've got any suggestions or any needs that you want to share with us for us to look into to aid you, then by all means, please let us know. We'll be only too happy to entertain it. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Larry, did you say that the horses are part of the ROTC program?
Yes, that's correct.
Used for
the
parades?
students. The students use it. It's a Calvary thing. It's part of the program. It's part of his curriculum, and it's interesting. It attracts a lot of kids because they want to have an opportunity to ride those horses, and there'll be competition statewide, and it's pretty impressive. Okay. Other questions? I'll leave you with one thought. We were invited to in the military, they have balls at the end of a year and so on, and they invited us to their ball. And of course, they're all in uniform, and because it's a very formal affair, we were to wear our tuxedos. And I looked around to find my tuxedo, and my wife says, "You can't get into your tuxedo anymore." So she's got me on a diet now. Well, again, thank you very much for allowing me to come tonight.
Mr. Ford, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Given all of the issues with the water crisis and the children that may have been living in Flint at the time who've been dispersed to the various communities, what, if anything, is available to those schools that are now blessed with being able to teach those children?
That's a very good question, and it's a major problem because those children are not necessarily still residents of Flint, as you've said. They're dispersed, and we have programs for them. They've got all kinds of opportunities from childcare to gosh, I can't spill off everything that we do for them, but that's a big part of our program.
Okay. But there's opportunities to offset some of the cost
Oh,
or
yes.
monitoring
Yes.
at the local
Yeah, we
school
have a
district
staff
level?
that actually goes out and works with them,
Mhm.
helps the school districts, and
Good.
the problem now we're facing is that they're not going to. Well, I shouldn't say they, because that's not true. There's one water company that's still giving free water out, but Ice Mountain has stopped giving them the water out for our people. But that was pretty much all in the city, and the folks that are out here in the county, they didn't get a chance to be involved in that, but then they didn't need it. But those that need the additional help, they're going to be monitored till they're well into the high school age, because we don't know the damage that lead has done to young people, both mentally and physically. And so we're going to track them. We're going to keep track of it. We're going to know what they're at. There's just a myriad of things that we can do for them.
Okay, good.
All right?
Thank you for answering
Any other
that.
questions? Yes.
Can I ask one more? With regards to GCI, do you guys do anything like with the automotive where you allow members of the different school districts to come in and take advantage of that? I was at MASB, I think it's Jeff Mill maybe, he's with Van Buren ISD, did a presentation where like they reach out to the schools within their ISD and say, this week all of you can come in, so it allows the students to get experience, let's say on the cars, or with the medical assistants, that they come in and they do health checks. So they go to the different districts within their ISD and allow the students to actually perform the tasks that they're they're learning and doing that training. So they offer them, so it's a savings, it's a benefit to, let's say, the employees, cause they offer whatever rate it is for the oil changes.
Sure.
But, so then all the teachers can come in and, you know, schedule appointments.
I
whatever
know we
they decide.
formally did that, Jessica, but, my first thought was that's a great outreach and recruiting tool, and we do a lot of recruiting to get kids to come to the
Yeah.
the Career Guidance Institute. I'm not sure that they do that as much now because we've modernized that whole program. And as you might know, when at least when I was a young man, something would go wrong with your car, you could lift the hood up, and those that were good at that could get under there and tinker, and everything would be great, and they'd take off again. Well, today you and I and everybody in this room have to act like I did back then and lift the hood and pretend I knew what was going on, but I didn't. None of us can do anything today because there are about 15 different computers in an automobile today. And so I happen now to work over at the Patsy Lou dealership. I'm a customer relations agent over there. I'm learning every day. You pull in to have something done on your car, a recall or what have you, they gotta plug it into the computer, and the computer tells you what's wrong with the car, and then they go fix it. It's not like it used to be. You can't just tinker a little bit with it, it's so technical. So I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out and I'll get back
Yeah,
with you.
as you said, I think it'd be great for outreach, you know, and it's a benefit to.
Also a good recruiting tool to get people interested in coming.
Sure.
There's a crying need for mechanics. They gotta be certified. Everything has to be certified nowadays, and I'm telling you, the trades are wide open and they need help all the time. We went through a period where everybody had to be college ready. Everybody doesn't want to go to college. You know, that's just the way it is. And so finally, we got the scales off our eyes, and along with all education, I guess, and we're looking for both sides of the aisle. Not that we diminish the college prep stuff, but we also go to the trades and get people job ready. When they come out of high school, they've got an opportunity to either expand their education through a trade school, or maybe even go directly into a job. And obviously, out at the Career Center, our hope is that they are indeed job ready to go out. And those of us that are employers would be happy to hire them. Well, again, thank you very much. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much, appreciate it.
I wonder if you'd mind if I excuse myself.
You
I got
go right
another-
ahead, you go right
We're
ahead.
doing 3 tonight. If I get a chance, I can hurry to my old school district, and that's Westwood Heights, so I can go over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, moving on, we have our audit presentation.
Thank you. So, we are pleased to have Lewis and Knopf with us here tonight. I just want to let all of you know, I had a conversation with Mike a little bit before the board meeting tonight. We're fortunate, and this is news actually to Mike too, Allison is here as well as Kevin from Lewis and Knopf, and Allison was involved in doing our audit, so she was able to be here tonight to present some things. One of the things, and I'll turn it over to Chris to help kind of take us through the presentation along with the two of them. We get a management letter. We should get a management letter from our auditor each year. It's part of the contract. We're going to be requesting a formal management letter from them. I have an email which amounts to basically a lot the contents that are going to be in there, but I want to share it with you just so you have it. And I'll give that to you in advance of the presentation. Know that you're going to be getting Mike and I talked about the fact that we need to have a more formalized management letter, so we'll get that out to everybody. One thing that I will say, based on the conversation tonight and the presentation, we do have the option of having a deeper dive, since this is the first time that you will have seen the audit. For some of you, if you want to do a deeper dive, we could have a finance committee or a special board meeting that we schedule that would allow for them to come back and answer further questions. So does that represent what we talked about a little bit earlier? So,
Right.
Okay.
And before the end of the year, so this board is handling it.
Correct. Yeah, this board would be the ones to hear that. So with that, I'll turn it over
I have a real
to.
quick question.
Yep.
And I don't wanna point fingers, but why didn't all of us get this beforehand so we could look at it? Because personally, I don't even see why they should waste their time talking to me anyway. I'm not gonna speak for the other 6 people, but what am I gonna do, follow along?
They're gonna present an overview of the audit, and then, then as you have questions, we'll be happy to have a second, have them come back and do a deeper dive if you'd like.
Well, and why wasn't the management letter done?
Something that we're,
It's something that's, in my understanding, it's part of the agreement, that should have been part of it when we got this.
Correct,
So
yep.
I mean, really, we have an incomplete audit report. And none of us, who's read it? Okay, so one of the 6 of us has actually been able to see it. So someone wasted our time, because I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna listen to something that I've never looked at.
so my hope is that you'll be able to get an overview, and, as you have questions, you can ask questions. Allison will be here, who did perform our audit, and then we'll have another opportunity to have them back for you to ask more questions after you've had a time to digest it. Okay? So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
This is Kevin from Listen Up. He's gonna guide us through the presentation, and honestly, the presentation was just paper format. We didn't feel there was anything wrong with that, so I apologize. Didn't know that would be upsetting, so.
Have you done our audit before?
I did not work on that.
Not you, I mean your company.
This is our first year.
No, this is the first year for,
Well, since 2011, I won't talk before that, it's been given to us so we can look at it a week or 2 before we come to this. So, I don't know who didn't tell who. I understand Chris is new, Ben is still, I guess, what, this is year 2 for an audit for you?
So
So-
an opportunity for improvement going forward.
we can definitely make that,
Welcome, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, President Tremaine, Superintendent Minka, rest of the board. I'm Kevin Kelly with Lewis and Allison Wills-Cox, also with Lewis and she worked on the audit. As Superintendent mentioned, we're providing an overview of the audit that we performed for the 2017-18 fiscal year. You have a packet in front of you, a little presentation packet along with the audit report. I'm just gonna briefly go through and take a lot of your time. I'm just gonna give you an overview of the audit. So we were engaged to audit the financial statements and express an opinion on those financial statements, that they are materially accurate. Materially means that we set a level threshold of materiality, and we don't look at every transaction that takes place during the year. So if you can open up the page, actually page 3, the auditor's opinion is what we were engaged to provide, and the district received a clean, unmodified audit opinion. It's the highest level of assurance, and this opinion indicates that the financial statements are financially accurate, materially accurate, and they represent the district's financial results for the year. There were no control issues reported otherwise. And Chris did a great job, coming in at the last, early on, and helping us get the information that we needed to audit. You look at page 4. A single audit is also required if the district has $750,000 of federal expenditures. Swartz Creek has $2.5 million. This year, the special education cluster was tested, and there were no findings. And the opinion letter on that is on page 50 of the audit report. This is where you're testing for compliance, the federal dollars spent. Majority of the cost is teachers and benefits. Are the costs allowable? Are the teachers properly certified? And it was cash management is the dollars requested or spent before it's received.
So for the newer members sitting here, could you explain how a single audit is chosen?
It's kind of a complicated process, but your major funds are determined they call them an A or B, and Allison, how do you explain this? It is kind of
It's
a
not the
complicated.
same every year, correct?
It is not the same.
It's
And
different each
typically,
year.
each fund would be audited every 3 years. So you're not auditing the same thing time after time after time.
Okay.
It kind of depends on dollars spent and that sort of thing. So complicated process really to determine which ones you're auditing. It depends on how they're assessed as risk, if it's a high risk or a low risk fund, and there's a lot that goes into determining that.
And do you choose that?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
I just want everybody to know that they select it, and it's never the same, or it's not the same each year.
Repeatedly,
Yeah.
right. So I think the special education cluster, if I'm not mistaken, was about just under $1 million, I think, of the 2.5. So, or it represented about, a good portion of the federal funds. So now if we can go back to page 2, which was the one that we skipped. The biggest change in the financial statements this year was the implementation of GASB 75, which is the OPEB, or other post-employment benefit liability, putting on the government-wide financial statement. This does not affect the general fund. This is just a government-wide. Every school district in the state was required to implement this for this year, and it represented almost $19 million for your district, which resulted in a $51 million deficit. Again, that's a big portion. It's a big amount of money. It's similar in nature to the GASB 68 pension liability, which was implemented in 2015. So this is just about a third of the amount. And basically it's the statewide liability for both the pension and the OPEB that's proportionately distributed amongst all the districts in the state. Do you have any questions on that? So then if we go back to page 5 then, the change in the fund balances, the one that I want to draw your attention to obviously is the general fund. The ending fund balance is $2.8 million, and that is about 7.6% of expenditures. And this is a significant number, as if this percentage of expenditures falls close to 5%, that's an early warning system where additional reporting requirements and steps will be given to you by the state, because that's kind of just telling you that your fund balance has decreased to a level that requires special attention. As you can see, the fund balances of all the different funds, the general fund, the capital projects, sinking fund, the debt funds, food service, community ed, and child development. And the change in the fund balances there. fund balance, the capital projects is the sinking fund, and the debt service fund, or the debt funds, that's the bond, paying back the bond. I think in the balance on the bond due at the end of the fiscal year was 8.6 million.
Where, you still on the same column, debt funds?
Debt funds.
We do not have a bond.
That,
It's a non-voted,
Hmm?
non-voted bond.
That would represent the sinking fund, so the loan that's taken out within our sinking fund, that would be what they're referring to on that.
Okay,
one,
so it's
yeah.
it's our loan.
It's our loan, and it's also, so it's the cage and the PAC primarily there.
Going on to page 6. It's kind of an overview of the revenues, of the source of revenues for the general fund. As you can see here, the largest proportion is from the state aid. And then your local sources for property taxes represent 17% of the general fund revenues. And the federal is 4%. On page 7, the general fund expenditures by function. As you can see, 60% of your expenditures were spent on instruction, 37 on support. Typically, your instruction is 58 to 64%, so you're right in within that range. This is teacher salaries and benefits for the most part. And on the next page, page 8, is kind of a different view of the general fund expenditures by object code. You can see the salaries and benefits make up about the 79%. And that's typical for a district. It's 80 to 85. This is also dependent on purchase services. You know, if you're outsourcing certain functions, your salaries and benefits obviously would be less. So the more you outsource, more purchase services, the less of your salary and benefits.
So on that one, is it something you guys would be interested in doing, or would that be something we'd have to ask our people? Of that 13%, obviously we have custodials, and we all have a bunch of third-party pays that would fall out of that group. So is that something that you guys would look at to deviate that 13%, or separate it?
Oh,
Because it is, are you saying all 13% of that is what we purchase in services,
yeah, purchase service.
which would be other employees?
I believe on page,
And if I got impatient, I apologize.
no, that's fine. Page 4, I think. It might be on page 4 of the financial. Might give you a better breakdown.
I think it's in the actual audit. Page 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Because, well, when you're saying purchase services, so I guess simple yes, no question. Is that all people?
Is that all the people?
Is that 13% all people related?
No, there's
No.
services, there are other services that we, purchase, like if we had, a repair done at a bus garage.
Okay,
Yep.
so,
So it's all like services that we're paying for that are not employee or non-supply. So it's for things that we're paying for to have done that are not being done by employees and salaries.
but the custodians fall in that 13%,
Yeah.
correct? Okay,
Yep, and
so,
subs.
okay, so that's my question. When he just gave a number, you said, I don't wanna misquote you, 80 or 85% of your people are usually what we have at 79%.
And it's lower because of.
So of that 13%, just to pick a number, let's say 9% of that is people.
Mhm.
So really, that 79% is actually more like 88%.
Possibly.
And I made that number up.
Yeah,
Okay, I would like to know what that number is. Where is that located?
And
We're-
our financial records?
Wow.
But I mean, it's not in this report. mean,
I understand that, but for board members that's not sat here and done this, the quote there kind of led the board to believe that people are only costing us 79% of our budget. They're really not.
Well, the way that we look at it though is, Swartz Creek employees, we can't call those other people that are employed through Edgy Staff, and other companies, those aren't our employees, they're actually another company's employees, we're contracting them for their services, so that's why that's stated the way it is.
But when you're throwing many different purchase services in there, it would be nice to see purchase service of people and
Yeah.
purchase services of.
I get it, and the purpose of this report is by object code, so that's really that's driving how these are organized.
Right.
So, it's just,
Yeah.
But it's misleading.
it's by object code, and they're all coded with the 3,000 range,
I see
so-
what you're saying, so what we need to get is and I know it's in there, but we need to get you of the 13%, whether that's 4% of the 13% or 10% of
What
the
are people?
Correct.
Because like when
Which
we had our custodians, we were well over, and they were our employees, we were well over 80%.
Mhm.
Well, when you sit here, if someone asks you a question, what percentile of employee cost is your budget? Well, everybody would say 79%, which is really, you're wrong. Even though those other people aren't employees, people are costing us more money than that.
Right, so to know what both our Edges staff obligation would be, for, substitutes that we are bringing in, or our, DM Burr contract.
Yeah,
essentially.
I would like to know what people cost the district.
Okay.
That's the simplest way I can put it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and, if you were to contract your transportation.
Correct,
that would be
absolutely.
a
The
huge
one number
amount
would then
of-
go down, but the other
Right.
number would go up.
Right.
But when there's other things thrown in there, we don't know what that number really looks like. Because it obviously isn't 13%. Correct?
The services.
Correct, the people,
part.
the bodies.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But that doesn't include food service?
No.
No,
Because
this is
they're under,
general
they're
fund.
under their cafeteria fund? Or how does that work?
Well,
This is
food
general.
service
They're
employees are
ours.
paid out of there,
Out
so,
of the 13%?
no.
No.
Okay,
Not of
alright.
Well, just one of them. The head
Yes,
person.
yes,
Right,
correct.
Okay.
No, he's
So-
paid out of food service.
He's
That's
paid.
all.
He's paid out of food service?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because when we say people, I
So then-
made me think
Yeah,
that
so
food
then,
service was under the.
yeah, so then that'd be another,
Mhm.
that'd be another of what people are costing us. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? So moving on page 9 then, a budget to actual comparison.
Let me ask one more question. Why wouldn't he be following a purchase service? We purchased him. It doesn't care what pool of money it comes out of. We still purchase his service. Why wouldn't he fall in that 13%?
He's being paid out of he is purchase service, but he's paid out of this is a general fund, pie chart, if you will. And so you have the food service, which is a separate pie. So the food service fund is a separate entity, if
So
you will.
food service would be the other?
No. Food service would be
Oh, this is
a
strictly.
totally
you're right.
separate
Okay,
pie.
so it's just a general fund, all right.
Correct, yep, so you'd see a whole nother pie, and then you could say, okay, how much do we spend on
Gotcha.
food versus, and then you'd have a purchase services within that fund as well.
Okay, so we're not even gonna see that. Gotcha.
And that's actually on page 41, to answer your question. It's,
Oh, in the book?
The purchase services is 254,000 of the food service fund.
Okay,
So that is broken out
Okay.
on page 41. So budget to actual, revenues, actual 37.13, just under the budgeted 37.29. And expenditures 37.24, just under the 37.34. Both of those are very, very close. That's less than a half percent, when you're talking 37,000 or $37 million. So that's a good job on sticking to the budget.
Yep.
You budgeted for a deficit of 46,000 and the actual is 115,000.
couple of the things that we've talked about throughout the school year this past year. Obviously, the project that we did with Mary Crapo to move to the Little Dragons Learning Center, that was a one-time unexpected cost, or well, we expected it, but it's a cost. There was an unexpected expenditure of about $102,000 for the payback that we didn't know we had to pay back for the retirees. Or people that had if you recall, the money that was being withheld, and then we had to repay it back this year. So that was $101,000 that we didn't have a place for it in the budget, so.
Wasn't that money in, money out?
No, so we had to come up with that out of our budget this year. And the reason for that is because our district so some districts, very few districts, kept the money that they had taken out, and they put it into escrow. We did not do that. Would have been 8 to 10 years ago. And so all the court rulings finally hit this past year, and we realized that we had that liability. So that 101,000 roughly was also not expected in our budget, which obviously impacts it. So to be where we're at and still have a 7.6% fund balance, by all accounts, I feel good about that, knowing that we won't have those expenditures this next year.
So, overall, again, thanks to Chris. She helped us get through the audit, and as superintendent indicated, that if you have further questions, and if you do want to, some of those things that you had discussed as being in the management letter, it's actually, I think what you're looking for is like a comments and recommendation letter.
Well, one of the things that's in the actual contract when we bid services out, and Mike was, as our board treasurer, was involved in that decision. One of the things that's actually enumerated in that is a management letter. And so that's something that I think the board is gonna wanna see in a formal and official capacity.
Okay.
So, you know, I've provided them with a hard copy of Jeff's comments.
Okay.
But I think to see that on letterhead in an official management letter format is what the board's looking for, so.
Okay.
Mike, do you wanna expand on that at all?
I can if he wants me to.
Sure.
In your proposal, I'm gonna quote it a couple of places. First page, under work to be performed, number 3. Attendance at board and committee meetings is requested to present audit and management letter recommendations. Bottom paragraph, our goal is to perform a quality audit and bring you ideas that enhance the district's financial performance and success. Page 2, under audit approach. Our audit approach emphasizes gaining a thorough knowledge of the district's accounting system. Accordingly, we offer suggestions for improving operating efficiency and effectiveness of the district. We believe the management letter is an important part of our audits, serving a purpose much greater than just compliance, because we strive to make our recommendations meaningful and valuable. I agree with that, and I think we need a management letter with those recommendations. And I have 2 other questions if he's gonna be finished.
I'll intervene here at that comment. I was on the audit. I'm Allison Wilcox. And I have the email that Jeff had sent, and the reasoning behind us not putting the comments and recommendations in the management letter was strictly because we had had extensive conversations with Chris and Ben and yourself, and so it was kind of as if we didn't wanna beat a dead horse, per se.
Wait a minute.
We understood.
I had one conversation with Mrs. Beakey. Nobody's ever talked to me since that day. You didn't talk to me.
I was in the meeting with you and.
Yeah, and I sat right over there.
No, we had a meeting with Ben.
I
It was
take that back.
our,
You're right. We had a
yep,
meeting with
and
Ben.
we discussed then, the CDC issue that we wanted to dive deeper into it. So we had discussed that, and then we had extensive comments with Chris, and so
Right.
the only purpose that we didn't put it in there was strictly because we just didn't want any negative remarks, we thought,
Okay,
because of the staff changes during the year, there was a lot of things that happened with transitions that we had expected, and it wasn't anything out of the norm. We're more than happy to put it in the rep letter.
okay.
in the management.
Refresh my memory and tell the board what the loss was in the CDC.
I think it was a 200. 203,000, the loss, the food service, the decrease in the fund balance was due to a $203,000 capital outlay. And I think that's what you got into, Chris, after looking into it, right?
I'm sorry,
The capital outlay would have been for the Little Dragons Learning Center.
Is that where the loss
Oh, no,
comes
no,
from?
no, no,
there
no.
was a transfer.
Probably.
Yes.
That's a big part of it, yeah.
$102,000.
Yes, it was a
I'm sorry,
$102,000 loss in CDC.
Because of the Dragon Center being part of the CDC. Is
And
that
it was an
right?
allocation of salaries,
Funded out of.
The
allocation of,
salaries were
Cost.
higher than expected, than budgeted.
Okay, yes.
Well, then that's completely different of what we just sat here and formulated in our own heads to help out. It had nothing to do with building the CDC. It had to do with salaries.
It was a combination of both those things.
So to piggyback on what he's saying, that's exactly it. And not to take anything away from you, that's wonderful you met with Chris and you met with Ben and you met with Mike. Your job is to report to this board. I don't care how much you beat them up. I don't care if they walk on water or if they did a horrible job. It's your job to come tell this board. Because how can I correct him or her or even maybe decide to keep them employed here if I got rainbows and unicorns? Your job is to let us know, are they doing a good job or not? And no, I'm not gonna hold her that accountable. She's been here 2 months.
Right, which,
So, but in the same breath, don't sell me a bill of goods that just sounds great. And your job is to report to this board, not to them. I could care less what you tell him. Because if that's the case, don't come here and give a presentation. I'll just call him on the phone. Hey, how'd the audit go? That was great, Kev. Okay, have a good day, Ben. Your job is to come here and either really tell people the truth or don't come. So when you say beat a dead horse, you should beat it to death. Because this board didn't get to hear any of it, minus Mike.
Mike, you said you had 2 questions? Or was
I
there
got
some
another
questions?
question.
Okay.
Were there any internal control deficiencies that you labeled material weaknesses in the report?
No.
None?
no.
Okay.
So to summarize, you will get us a management letter,
yes,
correct?
yes,
And
and,
you'd be willing to meet with us as a board or answer questions from individuals
absolutely.
Sure.
after we've had a chance to go through those?
Yep.
And then going forward, we'd like the information in advance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That would be great. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Okay.
Thank you. I wanna thank you. I wanna thank Chris and her team. I wanna thank Stacy, who's not here to hear it. But I know there was a lot of transition going on, which adds some complexity to it. But thank you very much, and thanks, Chris, to you and your team. I think you did a yeoman's job coming in and walking into an audit.
Very
But thank you, and we'll look forward to getting the letter and, meeting with you again.
Okay.
Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Ken.
All right.
All right, moving on, we have some financial plus credit union changes.
Yes, so, in your board, action items, there are a handful of, financial plus credit union, things that we just need to, we're actually asking for you to approve them in a batch. Chris, do you wanna explain, the fact that Financial Plus has basically asked us to do this because we're closing an account,
Well, with
And
so many people having gone, there's nobody except, Cindy Garfield on the account, and she can't do anything unless we have, in writing that the board approves her to be able to do anything. And we have about $500,000 that we can't access, that's related to the building and site fund, and at some point, we'll need to get access to those funds, and it's just completely, frozen at this point until we can get the approval from the board and show it. I mean, it all relates to the, there's, new compliance, and, the credit union is requiring us to access the funds because Stacy's not here, Marilyn's not here anymore, there's nobody left. So we have to go back to the drawing board to get official signer on the account.
so essentially, this is the, this document, items 1 through 4. When we get to action items, we just wanted to make sure you knew what that was. It's basically allowing Cindy to be able to be a signer on the account and, pick up that check so that we can
And
access
honestly,
those.
the only reason it was Cindy was because she volunteered to go to the bank, and it was like during her first week here, and I couldn't go because it was during the audit, otherwise it would have been me, but since she's already on the account, we said, you know what, let's just move forward and get it done, so.
So, I'm sorry, can you remind me what Cindy's role is?
Oh, she's our accountant.
Okay, so it would be totally appropriate for her as the
Totally.
accountant. I just wanna make sure
Yeah.
She's
we all understand.
Marilyn's replacement.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that she would be an appropriate person to
Yes.
be
We
in that
just need one.
capacity.
We just need one signer, yep.
So we're closing, we're getting the money, Cindy can take the money, we're closing this account,
Yes.
and then it's getting,
Deposited into our Chase account is where we actively write checks and, manage our funds. So, and that's where the rest of our, funds are for the building site, so.
Oh, so this is a one-time thing for Cindy then, after this for.
Right,
Oh,
it'll be
okay.
closed and she'll be happy to have her name on it. So,
We just need to get the $500,000 that's there into our Chase account so that we can actually access the money.
yeah, we run the risk of not being able to pay a bill if a project came up,
Got it.
if we can't access those funds, so.
Any other questions for Chris? Okay, thank you. All right, bond issuance, I think that goes back to you.
Yeah, so, this was in your board packet, got it to you earlier this week, and this is a document that was drafted by the attorneys. This is a standard form, and basically what it's saying is it's allowing us, it's delegating the sale to our bond underwriter, and it's allowing us to authorize the issuance of that. So because it can be confusing, we're fortunate to have RJ Norton with us. RJ comes from PFM. And if you remember at the last board meeting, I talked to you about how RJ is our municipal advisor. So he's not, and I'm guaranteeing you, he's gonna give you a disclaimer and say he's not an attorney and he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. But he is our municipal advisor. And so his area of specialty is helping us figure out how to structure the bonds, how to take them out in what series, how to make sure we project the correct levy for all of those types of things. And all around just very much experienced in this state. He does probably one of the most accomplished people in the field of dealing with bond municipal advisory roles. And so we're happy that he was able to make it out tonight. So we're going to be voting on this as an official part of the steps to be able to have the underwriters actually go out and get these bonds sold to the investors. And so, RJ, I thought I would just turn it over to you if you could kind of answer questions for the board and help them understand anything that they need to know about this.
It's my pleasure to be here, President Jermaine, Superintendent, and board members. My name is RJ Naughton. I'm a PFM financial advisory firm. So we help coordinate the bond structure leading up to the bond election, and congratulations for passing that election. Now the next step, and one of the preliminary steps is the bond authorizing resolution, which is a legal document, as Ben mentioned, was prepared by your bond counsel, Christopher I. Moreno. And I could summarize parts of this document. It is an important prerequisite for us to get started. And it basically lists out the parameters, and part of that is to delegate the superintendent to accept the outcome of the pricing of the bonds. So he's authorized to have those bonds awarded to the district, see if certain parameters are met. And those parameters are found in the page 5 of the authorizing resolution, section 16. So it basically lists the maximum underwriter fee and also the average interest cost of the bonds not to exceed 6%. My current estimate is far below that, 3.95%. Maximum term of the bonds, 28 years, and receipt of a recommendation letter from our firm. As long as all those items had been provided, then the superintendent, if this document is approved by the board, is authorized to accept the outcome of the pricing and award the bonds to Stifel Nicholas, which is the underwriting firm. So Stifel Nicholas is a very large brokerage firm, and this is done through a negotiated process. We know who the underwriter is in advance, and that's Stifel Nicholas, and they do an awful lot of bond issues in the state of Michigan. And we are going to work with that firm. Stifel Nicholas, as a brokerage firm, is going to buy the bonds and then reoffer the bonds to institutions and individuals. And that is going to happen on the day of pricing, which is February 13th. And then several weeks later, on March 3rd, is when the bonds will be delivered, and that's when the district will receive the funds. So that's a brief summary of what this authorizing resolution is all about. By the way, leading up to the bond pricing, there are several important events, and this is part of the team effort between Stifel Nicholas, your underwriter, our firm, bond counsel, and the administrators, Chris and Ben. We need to put together an official statement, like a prospectus, to attract bidders for your bonds, or bond holders, so that Stifel could reoffer those bonds too. And that's going to be a very thorough document, and it's going to require a little bit of time to put that together. It's going to be a joint effort, and that's one of the hurdles that we have to cross. And then another one is to get a credit rating from Standard & Poor's, and there'll be a credit rating call. And so after we have those key events done, then we're going to be prepared for that bond pricing on February 13th. Just before February 13th, our role as financial advisor is to negotiate the interest rates with Stifel Nicholas and compare the interest rates that they're willing to go out with at the beginning of the day. And we're going to know that like the day or two before. And we're going to compare those yields, those coupons and yields, to other bonds that are in the market. And there will be several, because a lot of these bonds from the November election are going to be brought to the market around the same time. And so we're going to be able to compare your bond yields with other bond yields that have already been priced. By the way, your bonds are state qualified, so your bonds will have the state's credit rating and state's backup credit support. The state's credit rating is a AA. The bonds would also have an underlying credit rating of the school district, and we don't know what that is yet, but it's very important that your bonds are state qualified and have the underlying credit support of the state. And that's going to make your bonds more attractive to bondholders that Stifel will resell those bonds to.
And just as from a practical layman's perspective on that, RJ, that was part of why when we made the decision to go with a state qualified bond issue, there was an awful lot more background and paperwork that we had to do and go to the state and have those conversations, because they're essentially vetting and guaranteeing and approving that this project is a qualified project and so on and so forth. Is that right?
That is correct. It has the oversight of the state. Mm-hmm. And there's also the backup credit support of the state, and that just makes those bonds very attractive to potential bondholders.
Do we know our historical credit rating?
We're going to find out really quickly.
All right.
I'm just wondering.
I can tell you.
I don't know that I've ever heard that.
The district does not have a credit rating.
We do not.
Because
okay.
your
Okay.
non-voted, this is very interesting, came up with our last meeting, right, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was with Stouter Barch back with your 2011 bonds, was it?
With the PSC.
It was a non-voted bond issue. It was a non-voted bond issue covered by the sinking fund. But that non-voted bond issue was part of a state bond pool. So it was bundled with other bond projects throughout the state and basically issued under the umbrella of the state bond authority. And so you had the state's credit rating on those bonds, and it didn't, because of that manner and how those bonds were done, it didn't require an underlying rating of the district.
So because we haven't had any bonded debt officially since 1970, we don't actually have a credit rating. at
That
this
is
time,
correct.
so.
What credit rating do we need to achieve?
The underlying credit rating, I'm hoping it comes in an A minus or maybe an A, but, you know, I'd be happy with an A minus. You know, it's based on a lot of factors. It's based on the fund equity, which I heard is 6 or 7%. Pardon me?
7.6.
7.6.
Mhm.
You know, and there's demographics is an important part of that too, and enrollment trends. So the rating agency is going to look at that. We've had other state qualified bonds with an A minus or sometimes a triple B plus, which is just under the A minus, and they're still attracted to bondholders, but it could result in a slightly higher interest rate. So even though your bonds are state qualified with the overriding AA credit rating, the underlying credit does have a role in determining what that interest rate is going to be.
How long does it take for the district to get that credit rating? Like, how long is that process? Is that
Sure.
tonight, does that start after tonight, or?
So, one of the first steps is to have the official statement prepared, and there's gonna be a due diligence call between Chris and Ben, our staff, and Christopher Imerino, and also Steve Nicholas, to go through that document thoroughly, and there's gonna be some changes made to that document. And when that document's nearly done, it's gonna be sent to the credit rating agency. And they're going to review it for like a week and a half or so. And then we're gonna have maybe, they'll review it for like a week. And then we're gonna have a credit rating call. And between Ben, Chris, and our office, we're gonna have a call with the rating analyst at Standard & Poor's. And that call's gonna be about 50 minutes. And they're gonna ask some questions, and they're gonna have some documents already leading up to that call. But during that call, they're gonna request for additional documents. And then those documents will be provided right after that call. And then they're gonna have, within like a week of that call, they're gonna have a meeting with a group of rating analysts at Standard & Poor's. So it's like a team rating your bonds at Standard & Poor's based on all the information that they've gathered. And so usually a week to a week and a half after that rating call, Standard & Poor's will have your credit rating. That should be released about a week and a half before the bond pricing. So somewhere around the first week in February, the district would have their underlying credit rating, and the bond pricing would be February 13th.
And can I ask one more question? What determines the date, the February 13th and the March 3rd dates?
Well, this afternoon, Steve Nicholas is in charge of the timeline, and they released the timeline. And so we had to plan for all these key events, preparing the official statement and also getting the credit rating. So that takes some time, and so that's how that date was determined. By the way, interest rates, they're still very good. We sold a 30-year bond for Sparta Schools on Monday at 3.98%. I think their underlying rating was an A, but it was state qualified. So I still like the current estimate of 3.95. We just hope that rates don't change too much between now and then.
anybody have any other questions for RJ or questions about the
I
document?
just have a comment. RJ, thank you. It was a pleasure to have someone come up to that podium that was prepared and could answer people's questions.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will we be seeing you again, RJ?
Perhaps.
You'll come back now?
Perhaps.
Well received, I like this place. Come back out after the bond pricing and have
Okay. Superintendent evaluation.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just remind everybody of the process. We have the valuation template that we used last year that everybody was informed and trained on. It's the same process. However, I will be providing you a week before that date. As I had said before, I'll provide you with my own self-assessment. So what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll say, you know, these are some areas that I see that I've got to grow in, and some areas that I have some, you know, growth and deficiencies. And then there's some areas that I think have gone well. I'll put that into the document that I did last year so that you have some time to look at it prior to coming to the evaluation. The next conversation is every time we have to make a decision on whether we do the evaluation in closed or open session. I'm not opposed to doing it in open session, doesn't bother me, but you know, that's kind of a conversation that I'm willing to entertain. I don't know if anybody has, you know, any thoughts or comments on that, but I just wanted you to know the template is the same one we used last year. I will provide that to you, as well as my self-assessment a week prior to that. I think it's December 19th board meeting, is that right? The board meeting agenda will be significantly shorter than this. We are going to talk about the cage contract, and that will be the bulk of our discussion that night. It's just a preliminary conversation because obviously we have that contract renewing in June. It's not renewed. We have to decide whether or not this board wants to continue that. And we don't have to decide right now, but we need to start having conversations about it so that that's all out and open. Mike talked about it in his report. So other than that conversation and my evaluation, a couple other, you know, small piddly things, it should be the bulk of the meeting. But what I'd like to say, we would like to invite everybody, and we'll have a flyer that goes out. Tony and Ken, if you can be here at 6 o'clock, we'd like to, you know, have Carrie's agreed to. She wants to make a cake. She's actually a fantastic baker, so she's gonna make a cake for you guys. And
I promise it'll be okay.
and there will be some. We thought we'd get some pizza, and so people can have you know, just a light dinner and some dessert, and just to celebrate your time on the board, and thank you for your service. So
Be honored to eat your cake here.
Well, thank you.
I bet it comes green and white, right?
That's a good idea.
There you go.
Especially given.
I'm full.
Are we going to decide tonight whether it's open or closed?
we can decide at the meeting. So if you have a particular thought one way or another, you can, you know.
What has
you
the
can
board
let
done
me
in
know.
the past? What is it?
Closed.
We did it closed last year.
I was just gonna say, like, I always want to make a comment. I think you should stay closed. I think for the biggest reason I think is you're gonna get more honest answers. Because not everybody's gonna want, if there's, well, first of all, I don't think we should trash in public. If anyone would, but I think everybody will be more honest and open in closed session.
Okay.
And I think it's better for, I think it's better for you.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, but I mean, I think you'll get more honest answers out of people, which I don't think there's anything you've done poorly. I think you've had a wonderful year, but, you know, so, but if someone else doesn't think that, I mean, I think you get more openness in closed session.
Okay.
So essentially, we would come in, go ahead.
I didn't know if you were gonna, oh, okay.
Essentially, we would come in, open the meeting, complete a few of our agenda items, and then if you would like, go into closed session. And
Yeah.
we have to come back out to talk about the overall.
We have to come out and you
Assessment.
have to announce the overall
Yep.
score, yeah. Yep. That's it.
And I think deep down, if you have an opinion one way or the other, share it with us privately. I mean,
There's advantages and disadvantages. I think you already hit on one of the disadvantages is that maybe people aren't as inclined to be as honest about it. The advantage of having it an open session, of course, is that there's not an appearance of, you know, me doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, you know, but at the same time, it does open it up to, you know, maybe people feeling like they can't share as much. So I really could go either way. So, but I certainly see the benefits of of both sides. So if any of you have a preference or certain ideas on that, you can reach out to me or let me know. Good.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on, board action items, the Financial Plus credit union changes as Chris shared with us. I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Support.
All right, Tony, Jessica. I think we have a resolution here. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the Financial Plus credit union changes as presented. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Take that money out of there. All right, bond issuance authorization and the bond sale delegation. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Mike, Tony, any comments or questions? You need a roll call on that?
We should do a roll call,
Okay.
and we will need to have Mr. Engel sign that as well.
Okay,
now you gotta sign that one too.
yeah.
Yep.
So, no comments or questions. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community School Board of Education approve the bond issuance authorization and bond sale delegation as presented. Joanne, could you do roll call, please?
Yes. Mike,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Kiri,
Yes.
Tony Pop,
Yes.
Tony Jones,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
All right. We can proceed. All right, Mary Crapo motion to purchase, which was discussed at our last meeting. I know we didn't talk about it again tonight. I would entertain a motion. Do you wanna give a reminder, or is everybody good?
Yeah, so this
With
is
the
the
50 to 30
same
years.
option to purchase for Communities First. The timeline for them to receive the grant funding, they had requested that they would be able to procure funding at 30 years, but 50 years was not doable. So that's what they're asking, and so the board has to decide if that's acceptable to them, and I included that in the board packet.
Any, Jessica,
Support.
Brian, any comments or questions?
I spoke at length with Mike about this today, and I'm not gonna sit here and beat a dead horse, because as Mike and I decided, there's no way that 4 years are gonna vote against this. But I really do think, a yes vote with this, at some point in time, will be a disservice to this community. I don't think any of us will be here to see it, but, before this is done, it will be just another subsidized housing, or low-income housing, or Section 8 housing, whichever adjective you'd like to attach to it, in this community. And I don't think we're being the best neighbor by doing this. You went and seen all the wonderful things they did, and I agree with them. However, at some point in time, when that 25 years runs out, you are gonna have a clientele there that the city will thank this board for. And I, if you folks are okay with that, that's fine.
Any other comments?
Yes. I support this. And I support it because I honestly think there's a need in this community for subsidized senior housing. I have a couple examples that I've been involved in with elderly people who can't afford to go to a private senior housing, one which is local that charges about $4,700 a month. I know there's a need for it. I agree that a lot of housing goes downhill, but I also agree that, and it's been stated here, that a lot has to do with the management. I have faith in First Community that they're going to manage that properly. And I just, for the sake of the seniors, and being a senior myself, and I might have to live there someday, I want to see this happen. We approved it at 50 years, and I can't see jumping ship because it's gotta go down to 30 in order for them to get the grant. I'm sorry, I won't be here in 30 years to see what happened. I wish I could be, but
You ain't gonna be
that's
here.
just the way I feel.
Anybody else?
You ain't gonna be here, man.
So I'm gonna use the chair's prerogative. I don't usually comment on motions, and I won't comment on the motion itself, but I agree with you. And as somebody who works in healthcare, and Alicia, you can back me up here, there's a lot of opportunity to bring people together socially. There's a lot of behavioral health and mental health issues that are for people who don't have friends, don't have a social friend or a best friend, don't have a way to go exercise in the gym, those types of things. Whatever they use a space for, they have a common space to either gather to eat, to exercise, to share issues, common, problems. So I personally think that this type of housing in this community can add significant value, because we don't know what the profile of this community is gonna look like in the future, right? I just think we're giving the community a gift in a building that's amazing already, but will be even better based on what they've been able to do in their other buildings. That's all I'm gonna say. So, any other questions? No? All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I don't know if we have anybody who wants to comment publicly or stand and state your name and your statements. You don't have to stand, you can state your name in 3 minutes.
She's like semi-public, she's
Well,
not really
yes,
public.
yes.
So I really have to introduce myself? I guess officially for the minutes. So I'm Alicia Gardner, still community member until January 1st. But actually, I have a kind of question, comment, but I guess I didn't even realize as a community member that the state was backing this bond. So I would just comment that I think that's a really key point to further message as we move forward in the sale and just the communication with the public. I think that just speaks back to the trust, hopefully, that the community is starting to build in the board, but as well to know that it's not just the board, but that the state is backing behind that. So I would just comment that I think it's important to keep relaying that to the community.
Thank you for that. Okay, comments and questions for the board?
I have one, and this has been I'm not getting blamed for all this one. This is me and Tony Paul talked about this.
Yeah.
Then I'll let you ask it.
We were wondering what the success of the teacher payout for last year for sick day, for not calling in sick. They got a $300, $200, $100 stipend. What was the success between the first and second semester? And
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So I don't have prepared the official financial document, but I can get it to you. We saved, I'm gonna give you a ballpark number that you can't hold me to. I wanna say we saved $13,000 or $14,000 after we paid out the teachers compared to our previous 2-year average of absenteeism, right? So essentially what that says is, because of the fact that while we paid out this money to teachers, we didn't pay money out to substitutes and sick days for them being there as much. So we saved about $13,000 to $14,000. Now, what I will say is that number was looking really good in the first semester, and in the second semester it went downhill fast. So the number of absences that happened in the second semester were like triple what they were in the first semester last year. So what we found was that, and we're going to be interested to see how it goes this year. We're trying it again this year, but we made a little change, and I don't think it's going to work as well. Last year, we gave them the incentive money twice. So we paid it, if you could have like 0 absences to the first semester, and then we did it again in the second semester. So because we had such a tank in the second semester, we didn't pay out hardly anything in the second semester. We paid out a lot more in the first semester, and it was very successful. I think the mentality was, I'm doing really well, I can get through Christmas, after we come back I can get to the semester, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna let my hair down because I made it through the first semester. So what we tried this year is to say, we're gonna do it over the year now. So same metrics, it's just now you get, I think, 1 absence from beginning to end, and we are seeing more absences in the first semester this year than we did last year at this time. So it'll be interesting to look at that, but I can get some financial comparisons to show you the exact amount. It was very successful overall, and I would say in the first semester it was wildly successful, minimally successful in the second semester. So the absences in the second semester are significantly higher.
So when you break that down, can you break down the entire year compared to the previous 2 years, and then can you break down the 2 semesters? Because that, you know, because we probably saved money in the first semester. How much did it cost us in the second?
Yeah, overall, I think that number's 13 to 14,000 for the year that we saved.
Saved us 13 grand.
Yeah, but it was looking more like we saved ourselves 25 grand in the first semester, you know, and it chewed into it into the second. But I'll try and get the exact numbers.
But it's just not a financial save, it's a continuity in the classroom save as well too, right?
That's the biggest savings that you can't quantify.
Right.
We're actually seeing that this year with the new teachers contract. The number of subs that we have in our school is drastically decreased. And the reason for that, of course, is because all of our IEPs, all of our PD, all of our data meetings, that's done in that extra time. So while, you know, sometimes the staff doesn't necessarily like the fact that we're eating into that time, we're also making sure that they're in front of kids all day long, right? So we're trying to maximize, if we hire a teacher, we want them in front of kids the majority of the time that we can have them there. So having fewer subs in the building means they're in front of kids more. And obviously we're not paying for the subs as much either. So because we're getting all of our, so Derek's office, Trish and Derek's office schedules all these IEPs, right? So there's hundreds of them. So every day she's going through a list and like trying to schedule these for our parents. And the parents at first were like, especially at the elementary school, you mean I gotta come in at 7:45, you know, I wanna come in at a different time. But the parents have actually come around to it and they like it because they know they're gonna have complete access to that teacher for that hour, right? So when they come in for an IEP meeting, they're getting that teacher's undivided attention for that time. So I think the benefits of the contract are being realized by seeing teachers in front of kids more. I mean, that's gonna have an impact. And so the attendance thing also, I think, has been positive. I don't know that the savings is gonna be, we might be able to say it's a wash. I definitely don't think it's gonna cost us money. But I think the message helps morale a little bit. I'll just comment on it to say this. Prior to us trying this experiment, it was punitive. So if you got this many absences, or if you had this many absences, we're gonna lower your evaluation, right? So what we did instead is tried to incentivize them. And so we used the carrot instead of the stick. I think people generally respond better to that. I don't wanna say that there aren't times that the stick is better, but you know, in this particular case, it definitely helped teachers feel appreciated in terms of, okay, if I can at least be here and work towards this, I'm gonna be recognized for it. So, so I would say it's been a successful pilot. It's not something that we wanna put into the contract just because we don't wanna have to do it, right? We wanna be able to flexibly do it when we wanna do it, and we might come to a point where we say, it doesn't financially make sense or for whatever reason, but I think it's been successful, but I'll work on getting some documents for you.
Anything
Can I
else?
ask a question?
Because you're almost here.
I am official,
She didn't
according
use
to
up
the
her
You
full
calendar.
few
are,
minutes.
did you raise your
I
hand?
have not raised my hand.
Did you sign?
And I swore that I would never raise my hand again, but I'm going to
Okay.
do it.
But you did sign.
Yeah.
I have a stamp and seal from Gleason, that's as far as I go.
Okay.
Because you said previously it was more punitive, and now you're incentivizing, what about all those teachers that were good before? Have they gotten any recognition of?
Yeah, they continue to be good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
I just mean obviously there's a new plan to incentivize people. It's almost like when you were the good person, like all the bad people always got, the attention, even though it was negative attention. And now, because there's so many bad, now we've got this new program, but hey, I could have, I was eligible 2 years ago and I didn't get anything because I came to work every day.
Yeah.
Just a.
Yeah, you'll always have that argument at any point when you do that. I think, it just.
Zero absences.
Okay.
Let me just say that.
Maybe nobody was eligible, okay.
That first
There are
semester was
some.
the first.
Okay.
But there's very few people that make it through without any absences. There are some, but it's rare.
I do have a comment. Some of you know, we talked about it, at one of the committee meetings, and I mentioned something to Ben. I reached out to Jeff Wright. He's been a speaker with a group that, I've been involved with regarding the KWA water line, and I know that they came in on time and under budget, and so, and I had a brief conversation with him today, and he offered to sit down to talk to the committee, like the steering committee, about some of the things they did, some of the things, carrot and stick, that they put in their contracts as far as hiring a percentage locally and what they did for that. But one of the things, I'm mentioning it now because I know that you mentioned the other day you met with the architects, and he said even though really the architects are responsible to the state, he suggested that you have the architects and some of the different engineers sit down with the county agencies, like the road commission, if we're gonna do anything with the driveways, with the drain commission. So you get all that information about potentially the differences and, what needs to be done in the buildings on the front end. That way it's not affecting change orders farther on. He said he figured that all the agencies, and it doesn't have to be a long conversation, but he mentioned the drain commission, the road commission, the health department, what other agencies there might be, but ask the architects to sit down now to get an idea, and potentially even with Swartz Creek, what it is. I don't know if those conversations have happened yet or not, but that was one of the things that he recommended, and I'll say one of the last things to keep in mind, is that he said it was really worth the money for them, that they did value engineering, as he called it, and that was they went to an independent third party. They paid somebody, he said it was worth the $20,000 to pay somebody to independently look at the bids before they sent them out, so they could catch some of the things, maybe misinterpretations, or maybe something didn't look right in the bid. So again, they caught all of those a lot more. He said it definitely paid for itself beforehand, where they didn't have to pay for it with the change orders. So since the three of you from the steering committee are here along with Ben, I just thought I'd put it out there to all of you right now.
Yeah, the definitely, if we were trying to manage the project and put all the bids together ourselves, and that would have been on RC, myself, Chris, I don't know, we would never be able to do it. So that's why we have the construction manager, who that's what they do. They go through and they verify those bids, they look at what change orders might need to be there, and then they actually go out and interview those prospective contractors. So both of our CMAs, Woolgas and E&L, they don't have the ability to self-perform the work. That's a contractual as well as legal obligation. So it's going to be interesting because E&L does a lot of work around here. They're building the school in Flint right now, that new the new academy that's going in down there. So they're building it there. Their construction crews are building it. They can't build anything in this project, right? So that's their sole focus, is to make sure they're vetting those contractors now with Woolgas, of course.
I'm gonna piggyback on what she said though. She's 100% right with Jeff Wright saying that. And I'll give you an example where we ate it here. And I'm not being a jerk when I say this. When we did the bus wash, one of the things we got dinged on was by the drain commission because we didn't set up the right filtering system or whatever for that water to wash down. Had Chapman or Hall or whoever else you want to blame the board, whoever you want to blame. Had we done exactly what she said, then that would have already been there. And guess what? That would have been less money. We would have went over budget. So I do think getting with your local people, I never gave that any thought. But as soon as you were saying that, it was clicking in my head because we did get our hands slapped by the drain commission with that. So I think it's something you may want to engage in, and and again, whoever's doing this, how are we holding them accountable for shabby work? Because I don't disagree with that by having a third party. If you're satisfied with how that's being done, that's fine. But we did that here with Clark Construction, and we had zero recourse. So if you have zero recourse again, and you got another leaky roof, like we still have a leaky roof, again, shame on. I did not understand all that when I sat here and we approved who we were going to hire. But everybody on this board was here, learned a lesson. Carrie, myself, and Brian, we were part of that lesson, and we've told the ones of you that are still going to be here. So it's not like anyone's going into this blind. So something you may want to really consider differently. So, but I do agree with that because as you said that we got our hands smacked by the drain commission.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, with that, we shall adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, audience.
I don't know who's going to be here when you're on the board.
You don't even get to
She'll have her own fan club.
She'll be trying to get her kids or the neighbors to come.
You already need to sign some stuff too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, second.
Even my husband said I
Oh,
could.
I'm gonna run to the
Have a
restroom.
good night.
I'll use your pen. Oh, Lord.